I'm fascinated by lost media. I think a lot of people out there are. Media that like you're just trying to hunt down forever. I talked earlier about like Step by Step was never on DVD. And then one day it was. Something miraculous happened recently. So there was, I've been talking about South Park a lot. There was a website when I was a kid called SP Scriptorium. And it, very Web 1.0 kind of website. Yeah. It was run by a guy named Willie Westwood, who I think went on to run the South Park forums on the South Park Studios website, the official website. They did a thing once when I was a kid that was like, hey, we need somebody who can do a good Butters voice or somebody who can do a good Cartman voice. And I did it. And I sent them, and they chose me. I don't remember what they ended up using the project for, but I did Butters and Cartman, and they used it for some project.
We are the nuts who say no. We are the guardians of the sacred bird.
I must have been 17 or something, maybe younger, actually, probably like 15. Anyway, they would transcribe entire episodes of South Park, and then they would have like a section called like secrets. And they would say, here's where the alien was in this episode, and here's this and whatever. It was like mostly a text-based experience. And if you were a huge fan, that's where you hung out and learned about more things about South Park.
Just an aside, just hearing text-based, my wife was telling me about, because people go on if they want ideas for outfits, they just go on like Instagram or something. But like back in the day, there was forums where you would have to just describe what your outfits were, and you'd be like, "It looks pretty cute," and you just have to take their word for it. And then you would it's like, "I bought this here, I bought this there," and you describe how it looks. It's like, man, the internet was just a different place.
A little bit more wholesome, perhaps. And I remember vaguely, when I was like 14, I went on eBay and I bought, it was like rare Trey Parker tape. And it had, by this point, like I had just seen Cannibal the Musical, and it had like a bunch of their college films. Like there was one where Trey was dressed up like Elvis and did like an Elvis song. And there was one called like the Giant Beavers of Southern Sri Lanka. It was like a Godzilla kind of parody. And there was Time Warped, which was their pilot, their unaired pilot for a show that was kind of based on Cannibal. And I was like shocked to find, it was at the time, you wouldn't find that online. If you found that online, it would look like garbage and there'd be 10 seconds of it. But I had this tape that was like, oh my God, like I just found like the Holy Grail. And it was like $50 a tape. Like I spent real money on the tape at the time. Wow. And at the very end, they tagged it up with Trey and Matt's first ever appearance on Jay Leno. They're dressed very ostentatiously in like purple glittery shit and stuff. They were going through like their celebrity phase, Yeah. And this is like basketball era. So Trey's got the big yellow kind of tweak hair, and Matt is leaning into the fro. Yeah. So because of that Leno interview, I became kind of interested in like collecting as many of their interviews as possible. So I download like, when they were on Kimmel, or there's a really funny Kimmel one where they fart on somebody llamas. This guy, there was like a show at the time called Hot or Not, and they would use like a red pointer to show like cellulite on a woman's body and stuff.
Just face me. Okay.
Wait, Lorenzo, what do you have there?
I got a tip for you. Squeeze those thighs really tight. At some point between the hip and the knee, your legs have to touch. There's just too big of a gap in there.
And that's our anatomy lesson for the day.
And Trey farted on the dude's head. And the guy was like really mad. It all happens on TV. It was on Jimmy Kimmel.
Dude, what are you guys doing? They have a collection. They got
I was like collecting these interviews because I just was like, they were like my idols, and I just wanted to soak up like whatever it was that they were putting out into the world. And the SP Scriptorium had a transcription. Dude, we're going back like 26 years. Like this is a long time ago. And it was like Trey appears on Leno to talk about Orgazmo. And I was like, that clip doesn't exist. that didn't happen. Cause I've looked everywhere for such a thing, and I've never seen it. And I kind of, I remember being young and looking for it, and enough time passed where I was like, that doesn't exist. I was like, why would you bring on just Trey and not Matt? And why would it be about Orgazmo and not South Park if South Park had already come out by that point? Like, it just doesn't make sense. And wouldn't you know it, last week, I'm just on YouTube. I haven't thought about that in years. Trey Parker on Jay Leno. It's on YouTube. Some fucking guy. His YouTube channel, a lot of his channel is like stuff from my VHS from my VHS recordings from the last 20 years. And he just put stuff up, and there it was, man. And it's an interesting little interview, because again, you're talking about a movie that like very few people in the audience are likely to see, because that movie didn't get wide distribution. It had an NC-17.
So the rating is NC-17?
Yeah.
Do you have a problem with that? Did you know it would be?
Oh, it is so, and anyone, if you ever see the movie down the road or whatever, it is the most ridiculous rating. There's no nudity in this film. There's no sex in this film, and there's no violence in this film. So it really, I mean, there's like kung fu fighting, but it's all. You? I think they don't like me, and I think I offended them somehow.
And Trey is like very visibly. We've talked a lot about his relationship with Matt. Definitely, you can understand why he would want Matt for all press.
I said, Matt, please come do the Tonight Show with, and he's such a bastard. I hate him because and I know that he's just going to be sitting there watching this, in bed with a drink, just going, watching me be nervous.
Yeah.
I hate him. I really do.
Because I know he usually shaves and combs your hair for you, doesn't he?
Yeah, he does. And I'm nothing without him.
Because he's nervous. He's struggling to. I mean, he's funny and charming and stuff, but he's struggling to get through it.
Matt's the hype man, and he's the articulate hype man.
Yeah, the security blanket or something. And I got to tell you, something I didn't realize was an extremely hot Reese Witherspoon is sitting next to him the whole time. And he's pretty tall and she's pretty small. And so there's like a size differential there. But she was promoting Pleasantville, if you ever saw that movie, the black and white movie from...
I remember that, that name.
Like late 90s. It was about like this family from the 50s that was like transitioning into like color and into like the modern world. Paul Walker's in it. Tobey Maguire's in it. But she was promoting that, and he's sitting there talking about this movie Orgazmo, and talking about being on porn sets to do research for it. And I guess I don't really have much else to say about it other than I can't fucking believe I came across that.
Did you see the Jay Leno? He got a huge head injury.
Poor guy, man. He's like Harrison Ford. Like, I guess he's out there living life for real. He's not just sitting in his living room, and he keeps getting injured.
Yeah, he was like at Hampton Inn or something. He's like, I could take a shortcut down the hill, and then I fell down and hit a rock on my face.
Well, the hill doesn't look that steep. It's about 60, 70 feet. Let me see if I can go down the hill. And then I fell down, just boom, boom,
So you rolled down the hill?
I rolled down the hill, hit my head on a rock.
Then people were like, let's find that Hampton Inn so we can verify that hill.
Remember everybody wanted to kill him over the Conan thing, Team Coco? Do you remember that?
Oh, yeah.
He was, a couple of years ago or something, he was on that club, whatever, the Bill Maher's podcast in his fucking smoke den, in his hot box. And Jay Leno, like, kind of, I thought, in a very classy way, described that whole situation and how the networks were working and how the whole thing came to be. And I was like, this is a pretty reasonable explanation. It seems a little unfair to want to kill Jay Leno over the fact that he was just more successful. His show was just more successful in that format.
Got fired twice for the crime of being number one. And, you just have no bitterness about it.
I ever tell you what they said to me? I said, I'm number one. You know what they said?
Jay.
We want what's above number one.
No.
Yes, that's my favorite quote.
Yeah, because what was it? Conan took over
The Tonight Show,
and then pretty soon after, like they put a Jay Leno show right before his, and then canceled Conan, and then put Jay Leno back in there, right?
In that old time slot, probably because Jay Leno has a certain demographic that was watching at that time.
Yeah.
It probably is just numbers. Back then, kids, we used to care about who was watching. Now we just put any slop on streaming. And,
now it's like, now maybe Acolyte could have gotten a season 2 if they just freaking had the will to do it.
Yeah, if there wasn't as much hate and bad press, like probably It's a strange thing. Streaming kind of like obfuscates a lot of that stuff, but it shouldn't, in my view. I mean, anything worth doing is worth measuring. And so, like, if it's not retaining people on the platform, it's not bringing people onto the platform. But probably even that is hard to quantify. The only way you would know that is through like qualitative surveys or something that says what brought you onto the platform.
Although I think like Netflix is probably pretty good. They like cancel things like at the drop of the hat, much to a lot of people's dismay. Like people were like, "Oh, just give this another chance," and Netflix is just like, "No." We're getting
They're pretty like they're pretty liberal about spending their money and making new stuff, and then they're equally savage about like, all right, next.
Yeah.
Which is probably a pretty good strategy just to make sure things are working and fresh. And I do think I think Netflix is a better platform than Disney. And I think probably Max is the best of the three. And I don't even have it, but I think it's probably is the best of the three. Based on some of the shows.
Just based on the Penguin and House of the Dragon, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, those two alone, that's pretty, I'm not seeing anything quite at that caliber elsewhere.
That's true.
And it looks like a lot of fun.
I liked it.
We'll check it out. Okay. Thank you, Trey.
Subscribe to Red Cow Entertainment on Patreon for full episodes every other week.